The fluorescent lights of the pharmacy buzzed overhead, casting everyone in that sickly greenish tint that made even the healthiest person look ill. Nora Matthews adjusted her shopping basket, balancing a bottle of prenatal vitamins and folic acid supplements against her hip. 6 months of trying for a baby had turned their medicine cabinet into a shrine of fertility aids and hormone trackers. She rounded the corner to grab some lip balm when she spotted him. Her husband, Ethan, stood at the pharmacy counter, shoulders hunched as if trying to make himself smaller. Strange, Ethan always commanded any room he entered with his easy confidence. The pharmacist handed him a small paper bag and he quickly shoved it into his jacket pocket, glancing around nervously. Nora stepped behind a display of seasonal allergy medication. Something cold settled in her stomach. In 4 years of marriage, she'd never seen him look so furtive. She moved closer, pretending to study a package of antihistamines. "Will there be anything else today, sir?" the pharmacist asked. "No, that's it," Ethan replied, his voice unnaturally tight. "Thanks." As he turned from the counter, the paper bag slipped partially from his pocket. Inside, Nora glimpsed a familiar teal box, Plan B, the morning after pill, the world tilted sideways. Her basket clattered to the floor, prenatal vitamins rolling across the linoleum. Ethan's head whipped around, his eyes widening in horror as they locked with hers. "Nora," he said. Her name sounding like a question, she stepped forward, suddenly aware they were creating a scene but beyond caring. "Who needs this pill, Ethan?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt, each word dropping like a stone between them. 13 hours earlier, Nora had kissed Ethan goodbye at the door of their renovated brownstone in Park Slope. She remembered the warmth of his lips, the familiar scent of his cedar cologne as he pulled her close. "Don't forget we're meeting the Jacobsons for dinner at 7, she'd reminded him, straightening his tie. They'd been trying to schedule this double date for months. Rachel Jacobson had been Nora's roommate in college, and her husband, Drew, worked at the same architectural firm as Ethan. "Wouldn't miss it," Ethan had promised, running his thumb along her cheek. "I'll come straight from work." He'd been so convincing, so present in that moment. Later, she would replay this exchange in her mind, searching for signs, a flicker in his eyes, a hesitation in his voice, anything that might have betrayed what was to come. Now, standing in the pharmacy with the evidence literally in his pocket, Nora felt the comfortable foundations of her life cracking beneath her. "Let's not do this here," Ethan whispered, glancing around at the curious faces of other customers. "Do what, exactly?" Nora's voice rose despite herself. "Discuss why my husband, who has been trying to get me pregnant for 6 months, is buying emergency contraception." A middle-aged woman nearby pretended to be fascinated by denture cream. The pharmacist suddenly found paperwork that needed immediate attention. Ethan's face flushed. "Nora, please. I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can." Her words were ice. "You always have explanations." She turned and walked out, leaving her scattered prenatal vitamins on the floor. Outside, the crisp October air hit her face, but she barely felt it. Her mind was racing, replaying moments from their marriage, searching for clues she might have missed. The late nights at work, the weekend conference in Chicago last month, the sudden password change on his phone. All the little things she'd dismissed because trust was the bedrock of their relationship, or so she'd thought. Ethan caught up to her half a block away, his breath forming clouds in the cool air. "Nora, wait." He reached for her arm but dropped his hand when she flinched away. "It's not what you think." "Enlighten me, then." She kept walking, heels clicking against the sidewalk. "What should I be thinking?" "Not here." His voice had an edge of desperation. "Can we please go home and talk about this?" Nora stopped abruptly, turning to face him. People streamed around them on the busy street, but they might as well have been alone in the universe. "Fine, let's go home. I'd love to hear what possible explanation you have for this." The 20-minute walk home was the longest of her life. They moved in silence, a foot of pavement between them that might as well have been a mile. Nora's mind spiraled through possibilities, each worse than the last. Was there someone else? Had there always been someone else? How long had she been living in a fantasy while Ethan carried on a double life? Their brownstone, usually a sanctuary, felt like a stranger's home when they entered. Nora headed straight to the kitchen, dropping her purse on the island counter. She needed something to do with her hands, so she filled the kettle and set it on the stove with mechanical precision. "Start talking," she said, not turning to look at him. Ethan stood in the doorway, still in his coat. "It's complicated. Infidelity usually is." The kettle began to whistle and she snatched it off the burner. "I'm not cheating on you," he said, the words rushing out. "I swear on my life, Nora," she laughed, a brittle sound. "So what? You're secretly a pharmacist now? Stocking emergency contraception for the neighborhood?" "It's for Drew!" The mug Nora was holding clattered against the counter. "What?" Drew Jacobson asked me to get it. "He couldn't go himself because Rachel might find out." Nora turned slowly, studying her husband's face for the lie. But his eyes, those familiar hazel eyes that had gazed at her across the breakfast table for years, held only anguish and what looked disturbingly like truth. "Drew is cheating on Rachel?" The words felt foreign on her tongue. "And you're helping him?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she'd seen 1,000 times. "It's not that simple." "Then make it simple for me," she demanded, crossing her arms. "Because from where I'm standing, you're an accessory to betraying my friend." He crossed to the kitchen island, placing the paper bag between them. The teal box seemed to pulse with its own energy. "Drew came to me yesterday," Ethan began, his voice low. "He was a mess. Said he'd made a terrible mistake at the office holiday party in the downtown office on Tuesday night. He'd had too much to drink and ended up with this junior associate in the copy room. And you decided to help him cover it up?" Nora's disgust was palpable. "I told him he needed to come clean with Rachel," Ethan insisted. "But he begged me, said he'd made a one-time mistake and it would destroy his marriage. He was afraid to buy the pill himself because someone might see him and word would get back to Rachel. So your solution was to buy it for him?" Nora shook her head in disbelief. "How noble." "I was trying to help a friend through a terrible decision," Ethan said. "I know it was wrong, but nothing." Nora's voice rose. "Rachel is my friend, one of my oldest friends. She deserves to know." "I agree," Ethan said, surprising her. "That's what I told Drew when I met him for lunch today. I said I'd get the pill because he was spiraling, but that he needed to tell Rachel everything." Nora scrutinized him, searching for the lie. "You expect me to believe that?" "Call him right now," Ethan challenged. "Ask him yourself." "Oh, I'm sure you've got your stories straight," she retorted. "Men protecting men. The oldest conspiracy there is." "That's not fair," he protested. "Fair?" The word exploded from her. "What's not fair is Rachel building a life with someone who betrays her behind her back. What's not fair is me standing in that pharmacy thinking my husband, the man I've been trying to have a baby with, was cheating on me." Ethan flinched. "I should have told you immediately. I was wrong not to." "Yes, you were." Nora pushed away from the counter, needing distance. "We're supposed to meet them for dinner in 3 hours. How exactly do you propose we handle that?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But Drew swore he was going to tell her before then." Nora laughed bitterly. "And you believed him?" "I want to," Ethan said quietly. He seemed genuinely devastated by what he'd done. They always are, after they're caught. She grabbed her phone from her purse. "I'm calling Rachel right now." Ethan moved toward her, alarmed. "Nora, wait, don't." She held up a hand. "You don't get to tell me how to handle this. Not after you've been conspiring behind my back." "I wasn't conspiring," he insisted. "I was trying to help a friend through a crisis without betraying his confidence. I was caught in the middle. And now I am too," she said, her finger hovering over Rachel's contact. "Except I'm not going to lie to my friend." The moment Rachel answered the phone, Nora knew something was wrong. Her friend's voice was thick, as if she'd been crying. "Nora?" Rachel sniffled. "I was just about to call you." Nora's eyes met Ethan's across the kitchen. "What's wrong?" "I need to cancel dinner tonight," Rachel said, her voice breaking. He just told me something terrible." Nora sank into a chair, a strange mixture of vindication and heartbreak washing over her. He told you? There was a pause on the other end of the line. You knew? Rachel's voice turned sharp. No, Nora said quickly. I just found out today. Ethan knew too? The betrayal in Rachel's voice was palpable. Who else knows about my husband sleeping with some 25-year-old from the office? Rachel, Nora began, but her friend cut her off. Save it, she snapped. I can't believe you knew and didn't tell me immediately. That's not what happened, Nora protested. I just discovered, but the line had already gone dead. Nora looked up at Ethan, who stood frozen in the doorway, his face ashen. She hung up, Drew told her. I told you he would, Ethan said quietly. And that makes everything okay? Nora stood, anger surging anew. My friend thinks I betrayed her because my husband decided to play accomplice to her cheating husband. I made a mistake, Ethan admitted. I should have told you right away. Yes, you should have. Nora paced the kitchen. You put me in an impossible position. Rachel may never forgive me, or you. I'll call her, Ethan offered. Explain that you just found out. Because I caught you buying Plan B. Nora whirled on him. Do you have any idea what that felt like? Standing there, watching my husband purchase emergency contraception while I've been taking folic acid and tracking my cycle like it's a second job. The pain on Ethan's face was real, but in that moment, Nora couldn't bring herself to care. 4 years of marriage, and he'd shattered her trust in an instant. I need some air, she muttered, grabbing her coat. Where are you going? Ethan asked, panic edging into his voice. To see Rachel, Nora replied. To fix what you broke. Let me come with you, he pleaded. No. The word was final. You've done enough. Outside, the early evening air had turned sharper, carrying the promise of the first frost. Nora pulled her coat tighter as she walked toward the subway station. Her phone buzzed with texts from Ethan, but she ignored them. Rachel and Drew lived in a high-rise apartment in downtown Brooklyn with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Manhattan skyline. Normally, Nora loved visiting them, admiring their stylish decor and enjoying cocktails on their balcony. Now, she stood outside their door, uncertain of her welcome. She knocked softly. No answer. She tried again, louder this time. The door swung open to reveal Rachel, eyes swollen and red-rimmed, a glass of wine in her hand. What do you want? To explain, Nora said simply. Can I come in? Rachel stepped back wordlessly, allowing Nora to enter. The apartment was in disarray, so unlike Rachel's usual meticulous standards. A suitcase lay open on the sofa, half filled with clothes. Going somewhere? Nora asked carefully. My sister's, Rachel replied, taking a long sip of wine. I can't stay here tonight. Rachel, I swear I didn't know until today, Nora began. I found Ethan at the pharmacy buying Plan B, and so that's how you found out, Rachel interrupted. And here I was thinking you and Ethan had been laughing behind my back all along. We would never, Nora insisted. Ethan only learned about it yesterday when Drew came to him for help. He made a terrible decision not to tell me, and I'm furious with him for that. But he did encourage Drew to come clean with you. Rachel's laugh was hollow. My hero, she said, refilling her glass. Where is he now? Still protecting his buddy? I left him at home, Nora said, removing her coat. I needed to see you alone. Rachel studied her for a long moment, then seemed to deflate. I believe you, she said finally. You've never been able to lie worth a damn. Some of the tension left Nora's shoulders. I'm so sorry, Rachel. About all of it. Not your fault my husband can't keep it in his pants, Rachel said bitterly. Or that yours enabled him. No, Nora agreed quietly. But I wish I'd known sooner. I wish I could have been there for you from the beginning. Rachel sank onto the arm of the sofa. The worst part is, I suspected something. He's been distant, working late, taking calls in the other room. She shook her head. But I trusted him. Stupid, right? No, Nora said firmly. Trust isn't stupid. Feels pretty stupid right now. Nora moved to sit beside her friend, reaching for her hand. Rachel allowed the contact, their fingers intertwining as they had through countless crises since freshman year. What are you going to do? Nora asked gently. Rachel stared out at the skyline, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk descended. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me wants to throw all his designer suits off the balcony. Part of me wants to make it work. Whatever you decide, I'm here, Nora promised. Even if it means choosing between me and Ethan? Rachel's eyes were challenging. Nora hesitated. I hope it doesn't come to that. He lied to you too, you know, Rachel pointed out. By omission, at least. I know, Nora said quietly. And we have our own reckoning ahead. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky darken through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Nora's phone buzzed again. Ethan, no doubt still trying to reach her. You should talk to him, Rachel said eventually. Even if it's just to yell at him? Nora squeezed her friend's hand. I'm not leaving you alone tonight. I'll be fine, Rachel insisted, though her voice wavered. My sister's coming to get me in an hour. Go deal with your husband. Are you sure? Rachel nodded. Just promise me something. Anything. Don't let him convince you what he did was noble, Rachel said, her eyes hardening. Men always think they're protecting us when they're really just protecting each other. Nora left Rachel's building with those words echoing in her mind. The subway ride home gave her time to think, to process the day's events with some distance. By the time she reached their brownstone, darkness had fully descended, and she had reached a decision of her own. Ethan was waiting in the living room, pacing a path in the carpet. He looked up when she entered, relief washing over his features. Thank God, he breathed. I was worried when you didn't answer your texts. I was with Rachel, Nora said, removing her coat. She's staying with her sister tonight. How is she? He asked, his concern seemingly genuine. How do you think? Nora's tone was cold. Her husband cheated on her, and our friendship is damaged because you decided to play hero instead of being honest with me. Ethan flinched. I know I screwed up, Nora. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough, she said, finally meeting his eyes. We were trying for a baby, Ethan, a family, and all the while you were helping Drew cover up his infidelity. I wasn't covering it up, he protested. I told him to come clean. After you agreed to buy the Plan B, she countered. You made yourself complicit. What was I supposed to do? Ethan's voice rose in frustration. He's my friend, my colleague. He made a terrible mistake and came to me for help. You were supposed to tell him to man up and face the consequences of his actions, Nora replied. You were supposed to remember that Rachel is my friend, that I would be hurt by this deception too. I know that now, he said, running a hand through his hair. I wasn't thinking clearly. Clearly, Nora agreed coldly. A heavy silence fell between them. 4 years of marriage, and suddenly they were strangers, separated by a chasm of broken trust. Where does this leave us? Ethan finally asked, his voice small. Nora took a deep breath. I don't know, she admitted. But I do know I need some space to think. Space? Alarm flashed across his face. What does that mean? It means I'm going to stay with my sister for a few days, Nora said firmly. I need time to figure out if I can trust you again. Nora, please. Ethan moved toward her, desperation in his eyes. Don't do this. We can work through it together. That's the thing, she said quietly. I'm not sure we can. Not right now. She moved past him toward the stairs, intent on packing a bag. Ethan caught her arm gently, his touch familiar and yet now somehow foreign. I love you, he said, his voice breaking. More than anything. You have to believe that. For a moment, Nora wavered. Then Rachel's words came back to her. Don't let him convince you what he did was noble. I know you think you do, she said, pulling away. But love without trust isn't enough. 3 days at her sister Mia's apartment gave Nora the space she needed, but not the clarity. She vacillated between anger at Ethan's betrayal and understanding of the impossible position he'd been in. Her phone buzzed constantly with his messages, first apologetic, then desperate, finally resigned. Rachel wasn't speaking to her either, despite multiple attempts to reach out. The silence from her oldest friend hurt almost as much as Ethan's deception. On the 4th morning, Nora woke to a text from an unexpected source. Drew Jacobson. Can we meet? I need to explain some things. She stared at the message for a long time, weighing her response. Part of her wanted to tell him to go to hell. Another part wondered what possible explanation he could offer that would make any of this better. Curiosity won out. She agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near her sister's place, neutral territory. Drew was already there when she arrived, hunched over a mug, looking as if he hadn't slept in days. When he spotted her, he straightened, his expression a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Thank you for coming," he said as she slid into the seat across from him. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Nora admitted. "What do you want, Drew?" He pushed a cup toward her. "I ordered your usual. Oat milk latte, right?" The gesture, reminiscent of easier times, only irritated her further. "I didn't come here for coffee." Drew nodded, properly chastened. "I know, He trailed off, then seemed to gather himself. "I need to tell you the truth. The whole truth." "I'm listening," Nora said, leaving the coffee untouched. Drew took a deep breath. "Ethan didn't know I was cheating until the day before you caught him at the pharmacy." "He told me that already," Nora said impatiently. "What he doesn't know," Drew continued, "is that it wasn't a one-time thing. The associate from the copy room, Vanessa, and I have been involved for months." Nora felt a fresh wave of disgust. "And this is supposed to make me feel better about Ethan's involvement, how exactly?" "Because Ethan truly believed it was a one-time mistake," Drew insisted. "I lied to him. I made him think I was desperate and remorseful, that I wanted to save my marriage." "Weren't you?" Nora challenged. Drew's gaze dropped to the table. "Yes and no. I do love Rachel, but things between us haven't been right for a long time." "That's no excuse," Nora said coldly. "I know," he agreed quickly. "I'm not trying to justify what I did. I'm trying to explain why Ethan got involved. He thought he was helping a friend through a moment of weakness, not enabling a long-term affair." Nora studied him, trying to determine if he was telling the truth or simply trying to salvage his friend's marriage after destroying his own. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. Drew met her eyes. "Because Rachel told me you've left Ethan, and that's not fair. He was trying to help me through what he thought was a terrible but isolated mistake. He encouraged me to tell Rachel the truth." "Which you did, partially," Nora pointed out. "Yes," Drew admitted. "And that's on me, not him." Nora sat back, processing this new information. "Have you told Rachel about the ongoing affair?" Drew nodded miserably. "Last night. She's filing for divorce." The words hung in the air between them. Nora felt a stab of sorrow for her friend, even as part of her thought Rachel was making the right decision. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, and was surprised to realize she meant it. Despite everything, she had no desire to see her friend's marriage end. "But I still don't understand why you're telling me all this." "Because I don't want my mistakes to destroy your marriage too," Drew said earnestly. "Ethan is a good man who got caught in the middle of my mess. He made a poor choice, but his heart was in the right place." Nora wasn't so sure about that. "He still lied to me. By omission, at least. For less than 24 hours, Drew pointed out. "Because I asked him to give me time to tell Rachel myself. He was honoring my request, trying to do what he thought was right for everyone involved." "What's right would have been telling me immediately," Nora insisted. "Maybe," Drew conceded. "But think about it from his perspective. His friend comes to him in crisis, begging for help and time. He makes a judgment call to give me that time, not realizing you would discover the plan B before I could come clean." Put that way, Nora could almost understand Ethan's reasoning. Almost. "I appreciate you telling me this," she said finally. "But it doesn't change the fact that Ethan broke my trust at a time when we're trying to start a family." "I know," Drew said, looking genuinely regretful. "And that's entirely my fault. I put him in an impossible position." Nora gathered her purse, preparing to leave. "Is there anything else?" Drew hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a phone. "Yes, actually. This is Ethan's. He left it at the office yesterday." Nora took the phone, puzzled. Why give it to me? You could return it to him yourself. I could, Drew agreed. But I thought you might want to see something first. He reached across the table and entered Ethan's passcode, the same one he'd recently changed, Nora noted with a pang. His messages with me, Drew explained, sliding the phone back toward her. Read them. From the day I first told him about everything. Nora hesitated, feeling like she was violating Ethan's privacy. But curiosity, and a need to understand, won out. She scrolled through the conversation, reading the exchanges between her husband and Drew. What she found surprised her. Ethan's initial messages were shocked, then angry. He'd called Drew several choice names and threatened to tell Rachel himself. Then came Drew's pleas for understanding, for time. Ethan's reluctant agreement to help, but with conditions. Drew had to tell Rachel everything before their dinner date, and he had to get counseling. Most revealing were Ethan's final messages before agreeing to buy the Plan B. This is the last time I help you. Drew! And to be clear, I'm doing this because I believe people deserve a second chance when they make a mistake. But if you're lying to me, if this isn't the one-time thing you claim, I'll tell Rachel myself, and our friendship will be over. Nora looked up from the phone, her vision blurring slightly. He really didn't know, she said quietly. No, Drew confirmed. He believed me when I said it was a one-time mistake. He was trying to help a friend he thought was genuinely remorseful, not cover up a months-long affair. Nora handed the phone back, her mind racing. She'd been so quick to assume the worst, to lump Ethan in with Drew. But the evidence suggested otherwise. Ethan had been deceived too. Thank you for showing me this, she said, rising from her seat. Are you going to talk to him? Drew asked hopefully. Nora paused. I don't know yet, but I have some thinking to do. As she walked back to her sister's apartment, Nora's thoughts were in turmoil. Ethan had still kept secrets from her, still prioritized Drew's crisis over their own relationship. But his intentions had been more complicated than she'd initially believed. By the time she reached Mia's building, she'd made a decision. She needed to see Ethan, to have an honest conversation face to face. The rest she would figure out as they talked. She called him from the lobby. Can you meet me at home in an hour? His voice, when he answered, was cautiously hopeful. Of course. I'll be there. Their brownstone felt both familiar and strange as Nora let herself in. She'd been gone less than a week, but it felt like a lifetime. Evidence of Ethan's solitary existence was everywhere. Takeout containers in the kitchen, a blanket and pillow on the couch suggesting he hadn't been sleeping in their bed. He arrived exactly on time, looking as if he'd rushed from work. His tie was askew, and he'd missed a spot shaving that morning. The sight of him, disheveled, anxious, so clearly missing her, sent an unexpected wave of tenderness through her. Hi, he said, hovering in the doorway as if unsure of his welcome in their own home. Come in, Nora said, gesturing to the living room. We need to talk. They sat across from each other, the coffee table between them like a demilitarized zone. I saw Drew today, Nora began, watching his reaction carefully. Surprise flickered across Ethan's face. You did? Why? He wanted to explain some things, she said. About the affair and your involvement? Ethan tensed. What did he tell you? That it wasn't a one-time thing, Nora replied. That he and this Vanessa have been involved for months. And that you had no idea. You genuinely believed you were helping a friend through a momentary lapse in judgment. Relief and confusion warred on Ethan's face. That's true, he said carefully. But how did he prove that to you? He showed me your text messages, Nora admitted. He had your phone, said you left it at the office. Ethan patted his pockets, realization dawning. I've been looking everywhere for it, he murmured. Then, more sharply, he went through my private conversations? To help you, Nora pointed out. He didn't want his mistakes to ruin our marriage, too. Ethan absorbed this, then shook his head. I still can't believe he lied to me about the affair, made me complicit in his ongoing deception. That's how I felt about you, Nora said quietly. When I saw you buying that Plan B. The parallel wasn't lost on Ethan. He winced. I'm so sorry, Nora. I should have told you immediately what was happening. Yes, you should have, she agreed. But I understand now why you didn't. You were trying to help a friend you thought was genuinely remorseful. That doesn't excuse keeping it from you, Ethan insisted. Especially when we're trying to start a family. Seeing me with that pill must have been devastating, Nora finished for him. For a moment, I thought our entire marriage was a lie. It's not, Ethan said fervently. Everything between us is real. I've never been unfaithful, never even considered it. I believe you, Nora said, surprising herself with the truth of it. But that doesn't erase the fact that you kept something important from me. You chose Drew's crisis over our transparency. I did, Ethan acknowledged. And I was wrong. I should have trusted that you would understand, that we could have worked through it together. We should have, Nora agreed. Instead, Rachel thinks I betrayed her too, and our friendship may never recover. Ethan looked stricken. I'll talk to her. Explain that it was all my fault. It's not that simple, Nora said, shaking her head. Drew told her about the long-term affair last night. She's filing for divorce. God, Ethan breathed. Poor Rachel. Yes, Nora said simply. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their friend's collapsed marriage hanging between them. Where does this leave us? Ethan finally asked, echoing his question from days earlier. Nora took a deep breath. I don't know, she admitted. I came home to talk, not to decide everything right away. Hope flickered in Ethan's eyes. You called it home. That's something. It is, she agreed softly. He reached across the coffee table, palm up. An invitation, not a demand. I miss you, he said simply. And I promise, no more secrets, ever. Nora looked at his outstretched hand, remembering all they'd built together. 4 years of marriage, a lifetime of plans, one terrible mistake amid countless right choices. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. I miss you too, she whispered. Spring arrived in Brooklyn with an explosion of cherry blossoms and the promise of new beginnings. Nora sat on a bench in Prospect Park, watching mothers push strollers along sun-dappled paths. 6 months had passed since the pharmacy incident. 6 months of rebuilding trust, one conversation at a time. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. On my way. Sorry for running late. Meeting with clients went long. She smiled, appreciating the update. These small acts of communication had become their new normal, a conscious effort to keep each other informed, to eliminate even the smallest spaces where doubt could grow. Mind if I join you? Nora looked up to find Rachel standing before her, looking more like herself than she had in months. Her hair was shorter now, cut into a stylish bob that framed her face beautifully. Please, Nora said, patting the bench beside her. Rachel sat, adjusting her sunglasses. It's a gorgeous day. It is, Nora agreed, studying her friend. You look good, Rach. I feel good, Rachel said, surprising them both. Better than I expected to, actually. They hadn't spoken much since the divorce was finalized 2 months ago. Brief texts, an occasional coffee, but nothing like the easy friendship they'd once shared. This spontaneous meeting felt significant. I've missed you, Nora said simply. Rachel smiled, a genuine one that reached her eyes. I've missed you too. I'm sorry I pushed you away. You had every right to be angry, Nora assured her. Maybe at first, Rachel conceded. But not for so long. You were caught in the middle of something ugly, just like Ethan was. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching a toddler chase pigeons across the grass. How are you and Ethan doing? Rachel finally asked. Really doing, I mean. Nora considered the question. Better, she said honestly. It took time, but we're in a good place now. Stronger, maybe, for having weathered something difficult. Rachel nodded thoughtfully. I'm glad. I wasn't sure you'd stay after everything. Neither was I for a while, Nora admitted. But what Ethan did wrong, keeping Drew's secret for a day, didn't outweigh all the things he's done right in our marriage. I had to separate his mistake from Drew's betrayal. Wise, Rachel murmured. I wish I could have done that. Separated Drew's affair from the good parts of our relationship. You couldn't, Nora said gently. Because his betrayal wasn't a momentary lapse. It was sustained, deliberate deception. Yes, Rachel agreed, her voice stronger than Nora expected. And that's why I had to leave, even though parts of me wanted to stay. Do you regret it? Nora asked carefully. Rachel considered this. Ending the marriage? No. The way I handled everything afterward, shutting you out, wallowing for months. Yes, you were processing trauma, Nora pointed out. You're allowed to do that imperfectly. Rachel laughed softly. Always the therapist. Occupational hazard. Nora smiled. They watched as a young couple strolled by, hands intertwined, completely absorbed in each other. I've started dating again? Rachel said suddenly. Nora turned to her, surprised. Really? That's soon, is it? Rachel challenged. The marriage was over long before the divorce papers. I just didn't know it. Fair point, Nora conceded. Anyone interesting? A literature professor at NYU, Rachel said, a hint of excitement in her voice. We've only been on 3 dates, but I like him. He's thoughtful, present. Talks about real things, not just work and sports. That sounds promising, Nora said warmly. It is, Rachel agreed. But I'm being careful this time. Taking things slowly, keeping my eyes open. Nora squeezed her friend's hand. I'm happy for you, Rach. You deserve someone who treasures you. Rachel returned the pressure. So do you. Ethan does, you know. He looks at you like you're his entire world. I know, Nora said softly. She spotted Ethan then, walking toward them across the park. He hesitated when he saw Rachel, uncertain of his welcome. Rachel noticed his approach too. I should go, she said, standing. Let you two have your lunch. You don't have to, Nora insisted. Stay, Rachel shook her head. Another time, she promised. When we've planned it, I just wanted to say hello, to start rebuilding. She turned as Ethan reached them, meeting his apprehensive gaze. Hello, Ethan. Rachel, he said cautiously. It's good to see you. An awkward moment passed between them. Years of friendship damaged but not entirely destroyed. Take care of her, Rachel said finally, nodding toward Nora. She's one of the good ones. I know, Ethan said solemnly. I remind myself every day how lucky I am. Rachel smiled, a small one but genuine. Good answer. She turned back to Nora. Call me next week? Maybe we can do dinner. I'd like that, Nora said, feeling something tight in her chest loosen for the first time in months. They watched as Rachel walked away, her stride confident, her shoulders straight, a woman rebuilding her life on her own terms. Ethan sat beside Nora, placing a small paper bag between them. I brought lunch. Those tomato sandwiches you like from the place on 7th? Perfect, Nora said, leaning against him briefly. He wrapped an arm around her, pressing a kiss to her temple. Everything okay with Rachel? Getting there, Nora said thoughtfully. She's dating someone new. That's good? Ethan ventured. I think so, Nora agreed. She seems happier than she has in months. They unwrapped their sandwiches, falling into comfortable silence as they ate. Around them, the park pulsed with life. Joggers, dog walkers, families enjoying the spring sunshine. I have something to tell you, Nora said after a while. Setting aside her sandwich wrapper, Ethan turned to her, instantly alert. What is it? She reached into her purse and pulled out a small white stick with a pink plus sign. I took this morning. Ethan stared at the pregnancy test, then at her face, wonder dawning in his eyes. You're pregnant? Nora nodded, tears welling unexpectedly. 8 weeks, according to my calculations. A baby, Ethan breathed, placing a gentle hand on her still flat stomach. Our baby, she confirmed, covering his hand with hers. He pulled her into an embrace, his body trembling slightly. I love you, he whispered against her hair. Both of you. Nora closed her eyes, savoring the moment. 6 months ago, she'd stood in a pharmacy, watching her world crumble. Now, sitting in the spring sunshine with the promise of new life growing inside her, She knew they had rebuilt something stronger from the ruins. Trust. Once broken, was like a mended bone, painful in the healing, but ultimately more resilient at the point of fracture. "I love you too," she murmured, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. "We're going to be okay." And for the first time in months, she believed it completely.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.